venture from the first four that we had in the first hour and go to McDonald to kick off our second half. And Ty, when you talk about the Blue Devils, what are they returning? What do they lose? And what are some of the prospects for them this season?
McDonald last year was 7-2 overall. They were a team that averaged over 31 points per game. They were also a team that averaged just over 300 yards of total offense, to over 350 yards of total offense, I should say. They are returning 3 starters this year from that offense, and Ty Agler, the junior kicker for them, as well as Nathan Gilligan, the senior running back, Logan Hawk, a senior that's just a phenomenal athlete, and Kyle Crown, who is an offensive lineman and a junior. Some losses they had: Dominic Cartico, which was huge, wide receiver for them; Hunter McCombs, an offensive lineman; Caden Crown, offensive lineman; Greg Murdich, offensive lineman; and Dom Shadle, quarterback for them. So quarterback that they're going to be replacing Shadle with is Logan Hawk. So he's going to be the guy to watch out for, I think. He's going to be the guy that I think they're going to be inserting in. He was a phenomenal athlete. They needed a position for him. I think they're going to put him at quarterback, it looks like, this year. He's going to get to take over. And on top of that, though, it's going to be interesting to see with that offensive line. There's some holes in front of it. So that's going to be interesting to see how they fill that offensive line holes.
Dom Shadle, one of the stars of the area last year, and they called him quarterback, but he was a great runner for that offense. You know, got some big shoes to fill if you're stepping into that shadow. Dom Shadle really lit the world on fire with McDonald's offense last year.
Yeah, but the great thing about McDonald's offense, it is very, like you said, catered to the run. So guys like Logan Hawk, who are just phenomenal athletes, are going to find an easier time stepping into that type of offense. Hey, I mean, that's all you really need to be as a quarterback in that McDonald offense, is a great runner and a great running option. Anything that you could do throwing-wise is just icing on the cake for McDonald. Right. So, I mean, we're looking Logan Hawk, and I expect big things from him. What I'm interested to see, though, and we know McDonald is so good at breeding those offensive and defensive linemen and getting linemen in that system.
Matt Seidel loves linemen, and yeah, he loves the McDonald offensive line when he doesn't have to play them.
Yeah, but losing 3 starters on the O-line is going to be interesting going into this season, filling those holes. I mean, sometimes it's not as easy. I mean, you got some big shoes to fill with 3 seniors that seniored out last year.
Yeah, but the one thing, I mean, you said it, McDonald breeds linemen. So I feel like replacing those guys won't be as hard as some other programs would have, because they just have great coaches that know how to coach up linemen. And when your offense is built around running the ball as much as McDonald's is, I feel like that's a point of emphasis in the offseason to make sure the linemen are on the same page.
Yeah, and I think McDonald, like you said, should be just fine with that, because they have a lot of big offensive linemen, a few sophomores and a few juniors that I've been seeing on this roster too that have, from what I've seen, great size and great weight from what they're posting too. I mean, height, weight-wise, I mean, that's what you want up front for that offensive line, and basically building a wall, and it looks like McDonald has a couple of pieces that are in place to do so.
Want to remind everybody that the comment sections are open, and any platform you're watching on, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Also, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning fan line open as well, 330-886-0813. So if you have thoughts on MVAC Scarlet Tier football or anything that your little heart desires, make sure to call us or comment and let us know what you think. Now, when you talk about McDonald's defense coming back, what are some of the key things about that defensive unit?
That defensive unit last year was a defensive unit that allowed just under 20 points per game and just over 200 yards of total offense, which is absolutely insane for a defensive squad. They were, I think, 17th, 18th, something like that in the area. And that is incredible, but losing a lot of pieces on that defense, and some of the losses, like we said, Dominic Cartico played defensive back. You had Nick Ferrandino that played linebacker. Hunter McCombs, defensive line. Shadle played defensive back as well, and Caden Crown, defensive lineman. These were pieces that were part of what made that defense so good. And you're losing a lot of these pieces now. Can they maintain that same defense? They're going to have 3 starters returning in Kyle Crown, Logan Hawk, and Nathan Gilligan. Gilligan and Hawk, both your seniors on that defensive team. Gilligan at the linebacker spot, Hawk at the defensive back. And with Hawk being quarterback too, This might be your team captains too on both sides of the ball with both Gilligan and Hawk, and this might be the two that you're looking to lead this defense, and it might need it too with a lot of young guys ready to step up and fill those roles in the defense, but they definitely need a good leadership, and I think they have two guys that are ready to step into those leadership roles.
And with their ball control ability and the ability of the offense to hold on to the ball for long periods of time, defense is going to have to get used to sitting for a little bit and being able to get warm on the sidelines. And I don't think people talk about how tough that can be for high school kids to be sitting for, 20 minutes maybe as their offense just methodically drives the ball down the field and then getting up and ready to go out there and play defense.
Yeah, and I mean, the defense is one of those defenses.
It does help that a lot of players play both ways, but at the same time, the ones that don't.
Yeah, but I mean, defensively, this is a defensive team that seems like they're the Energizer bunnies, and they just keep on going. I mean, they're just relentless with the stamina that they bring. Tackling machines, too, is this McDonald defense, and I'm expecting a lot of the same. They lose some of those big tacklers, but you still have Gilligan on that team, and Gilligan is one of the better tacklers in the area, so he's going to be one of those guys you look to make a lot of those big-time stops, too, and prevent guys going for extra yards and turning some 10-yard plays into some 5-yard plays.
You bring up a good point, and that's McDonald tackling. It's always at a premium tackling technique in McDonald. And you watch a lot of high school teams in the area, and you watch their tackling drills, and maybe not the best tackling ever, from some teams, but McDonald teams always have the technique of tackling down. That's a hats off to their coaching staff. They're not just wrapping guys or arm tackling and holding on and hoping they go down. They're hitting them. They're squaring them up and they're tackling the right way.
Not often you see many guys get a lot of extra yards on McDonald, and when they do, they certainly earn it against that defense because it is certainly catered to make sure that teams don't take extra yards and don't get those extra yards on big plays against McDonald. They're very tuned to stop them when that defender gets to the ball, gets to the man with the ball, that ball stops there. And I mean, that's exactly how McDonald's always been with defense as long as I could remember, having great tacklers over there on that defense, especially with a great linebacking core and great tackling secondary.
What are some names on that defense that you think will be the leaders that the Blue Devils lean on to be leaders on that defensive unit?
Like I said, man, Nathan Gilligan is one of those guys that is just he's a tackling machine. And then, of course, I mean, you got Logan Hawk that's playing both ways. And I mean, he might be the best athlete on the team overall. And I mean, playing both quarterback, he's going to create a lot of offense with his legs there. And I mean, his legs and his speed is going to be a huge factor on defensive backs too, playing defensive back, because he's most likely going to be put right on the fastest receiver out of the gate, or put him right on a running back and have him spy a running back out of the secondary too. You could have him do that because he is also one of those guys that is a very good tackler, especially for a defensive back. If
he forces a lot of turnovers, Ball Hawk headline kind of writes itself.
It really does, doesn't it? And I mean, it's beautiful.
It is perfect. So we definitely hope that we see a lot of turnovers forced, not given up, but forced by Logan Hawk. That way we can just slip that headline right in there.
We want to write at least one headline with that.
Talk about McDonald's schedule and what they have looking forward to in front of them, the teams that will be standing in their way from a successful season.
Well, looking at it, they open up with their non-conference schedule. August 20th, home versus Brookfield. August 27th, home versus Columbiana. And September 3rd, home versus Valley Christian. So all their non-conference games, 3 straight home games to start the season. Pretty tough competition, though. But, I mean, certainly the competition I think McDonald is looking for to get some good offensive teams into McDonald to test that defense.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Brookfield right off the bat. Those are two teams that love to be physical, love to run the ball, and it's going to be like one of the quickest games of the season. Ball control is going to be at a premium. Who's going to hold it longer? And it might go down to who has the ball last.
And it very well could be, too, with that Brookfield offense up there as well. We previewed them yesterday. Go check that out if you haven't yet. But, I mean, they're another team that has very complete offensively and defensively. And it's going to be a great opening week and a great test for both teams, August 20th.
Great reminder, by the way, that Ty brought it up. If you miss any of our previews and you want to check them out, You can find past running points on ysnlive.com/running point, or you can go to our YouTube page into the archive section of past live videos and find all the running point episodes there. And you can see any previews that you've missed, because we've done a lot of them this week, and we're continuing them here with McDonald. Talk a little bit about their conference schedule and what it looks like.
Opens up September 10th at Mineral Ridge, goes through September 17th, home versus Sebring, September 24th, home versus Springfield, October 1st, home versus Western Reserve, and that is their last home game of the season before closing it out 3 straight on the road. October 8th at Lowville, 15th at Waterloo, and 22nd at Jackson Milton.
That's going to be a tough stretch to end the season. 3 straight road games. I got to think that the coaching staff at McDonald wants to be in a good spot going into those final 3 games, so the pressure to win those 3 isn't all on their shoulders.
Yeah, and McDonald, another one of those teams that has 6 home games, but really front-loaded those home games in the beginning of the season. 6 of their first 7 are at home, with the only exception, September 10th, being at Mineral Ridge before they close out 3 straight at home. I don't know if this was what they wanted, intended for, or what, but I mean, it is definitely a tough break to get 3 straight away games to end your season, especially if you're trying to fight for a playoff spot.
That means protecting your home field is going to be so important this year for McDonald, because if you, like I said, if you go into those 3 games pretty much needing those 3 wins, or needing 2 out of 3 wins to get into the playoffs or something crazy like that, then you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on your kids to be road warriors.
You got to be happy, though. I would say you would be happy if you are McDonald that you have both Springfield and Western Reserve both at home this year. Those are 2 matchups that can go either way. I truly believe it. I think even that Springfield matchup, as strong as Springfield is and as high and hot as everyone is on Springfield, getting back to the state championship or making deep playoff runs, I truly think McDonald was one of those teams that could have done it and knocked Springfield off last year. And I think Springfield, that September 24th game, is going to be a huge game for both teams going into that week of the season, week 6.
I'll say this: McDonald is built to beat a team like Springfield. Not saying that they will, not saying that they should. I'm just saying they have. If you're putting together a puzzle, and you're trying to put together the puzzle of how to beat Springfield, McDonald has a lot of those pieces on their team of things that you could say, okay, we need this to beat Springfield. We need this to beat Springfield. We need this. I think McDonald is one of the teams that definitely has the pieces in place, and definitely could say with a firm foot in the ground that they have a chance to shock the world and beat the Tigers.
And I mean, you look at their home schedule. I mean, Brookfield, Columbiana Valley Christian, Sebring, Springfield, Western Reserve. You got to figure you need at least 4 wins out of that home schedule to get yourself in a good spot for the playoffs, with the 4 away games being Mineral Ridge, Lowville, Waterloo, and Jackson Milton.